Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we're giving you a big picture view of year one under Joey McGuire. Did some things that Red Raider football has never done before, did some other things you haven't done in over a decade, wrapping it all up with a 51-48 OT win over the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll get into how that went down and also look ahead beyond this season, 2023. Who will your quarterback be? Is Tyler Shough back in red and black? And who was doubting him that he made reference to in a post-game conversation with Chris Level? We're getting to that and more coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be back with you on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us on the heels of a 51-48 overtime win for Joey McGuire and the good guys. Call him Nostradamus because he said they were going to beat Oklahoma and knock down the south end zone to wrap up year number one, Chris, and came to fruition. Certainly adventurous, and we'll get to plenty of what was going on between the lines throughout the day into some extra football. But, man, what a way to wrap up a 7-5 year. Can now officially say they were above my preseason expectation. I was a 6-6 man, and the only time ever in your school's history you beat the Longhorns and the Sooners in one season. What a debut for Joey McGuire.
Yeah, Cowan, and there are different feelings about certain 6-6 records or 7-5 records or 8-4 records. I mean, some of them can feel different. This one feels extremely satisfying. There's a lot of meat in this 7-5 season when you consider the following: what you endured to get to that point with the quarterback issues and injuries, the fact that you won so many close games, the fact that you won 6 of them at home, and you won, I think, 4 one-score games, which is impressive. The fact you have a winning Big 12 record for the first time since 2009, and the fact that you finished with a 3-game winning streak, and that you finished better than you seemingly, you've improved, I guess, throughout the year. You finished as a really hot team right now. And what sums it all up about what this team is, because they're not great in some spots. They just play really hard, and they're just solid everywhere. We've established this. But when you look back and you win your last 2 games 14-10 and then 51-48, it just tells you so much about they just kind of do whatever is needed, and I don't know if that's complimentary football or whatever, but it's fun to see them winning in different ways, but just winning. And man, that was a fun night in Jones AT&T Stadium, man.
Yeah, and I thought it went down in just about the only way that it could go down, Chris, because it was another game where you're into a hole early on. And I say it's the only way it could go down because what we've seen all year long is this team being resilient, continuing to fight, to persevere, to be tenacious. And boy, did you ever need it. And what a weird beginning, not just digging yourself a hole, but after a tremendous opening kickoff return, you've got great field position. And then, boom, you put the ball on the ground and you're thinking, yeah, from here it's possible. But truly good things were still possible because of the intestinal fortitude of this team. I was talking about it with the buddy I was sitting with when you're down early on. I said, hey, we are back to a team where you can't count them out. You can't already begin to make plans about where you're going to get dinner after the first quarter because it's over. And we're coming out of a decade where that kind of was the case. You were not resilient. You didn't really persevere through long odds early on in the game. But how many times did we get a reminder that has changed for Texas Tech football this season? I might say 12, because really in just about every ball game, you responded whenever things were not going your way. Some didn't respond enough to get a win. Some you did. Thankfully, that's what happened Saturday night. But look, the verdict is not out anymore, right? Matt Wells, in my opinion, made the program a little tougher-minded. I thought they were a little bit more resilient as far as the culture was concerned. I was praying to tiny 5-pound, 6-ounce resilient baby Jesus, the most resilient of us all, that Joey McGuire would continue that and build on that. And praise God, I think he's done that. That verdict is not out anymore, man. I'm a big believer now in the mettle of Texas Tech football under Joey McGuire.
And I go to your point. I go back to, because there's been many times over the last decade plus where I'm on the sideline, I'm right there in the middle of it or next to it, whatever, and something bad happens, home or away, and you could just sense okay, here we go again, and the shoulders drop, the body language changes across the board, and then not with everybody, but with some. Because you just feel snake bit, or you feel like, man, we're just not going to catch any breaks, that kind of mentality. And last night kind of felt like the start of that. Just a lot of penalties, a lot of self-inflicted. You mentioned the turnover, mistimed snap. I mean, you just sort of appear way out of sorts. And then meanwhile, Oklahoma is just kind of gashing you. Big chunk plays. They're kind of getting what they want, but you just hung in there enough. But to sum up the game versus Oklahoma, go back to the very end of the first half. It's 24-6. You're down 18 points. There's about 3 minutes and change left in the half. It's 2nd and 2, okay? And from that point on, you would end up outscoring Oklahoma and then 3 minutes and change, 17-0, and go to the locker room when you're down 18, down just 1 point. And I mean, so that right there tells you we're here. We're going to be here all day. We're not going anywhere. We're going to fight, and we're going to be smart about it. We're going to capitalize, and we're going to have to execute, and all the stuff that comes with the football terms. But I just thought right there, that's kind of what allowed you to even be in a position to compete and to win the game. And not only you don't stop there, but you get a stop in the first or third quarter, then come back and take the lead, and then you start going back and forth. But I just thought it's that little 3-minute stretch that sums up kind of what this team has been about. And what we will talk about a lot of things this season and on that game in particular. But Trey Wolff just continues to be like such a fun story, that just has paid so many dividends throughout the year. I mean, all these overtime wins, these one-score games, he's had some monster kicks. Mm-hmm. And he misses an extra point in this game, and it kind of causes you to give you a bit of pause. But, boy, did he come back, and not only did he redeem himself, he wins the game, and it's becoming fairly common for a guy like Trey Wolff. But, yeah, that 3-minute-plus stretch at the end of the first half, I mean – that, rabbit interception, you had the big kick, you scoring some touchdowns. I mean, that really is, and that had Oklahoma with no momentum going in the locker room. They had all of it in the first quarter plus, and they go in the locker room kind of on their heels, and you just kept punching.
Just amazing to see that momentum shift.
Yeah.
And while Oklahoma was able to regain some here or there, obviously in a very competitive second half, it really never totally left Texas Tech's sideline. I don't think for the remainder of the night, in the stands, whatever. I thought you had a nice environment and a lot of things there spurring on the Red Raiders down the stretch as far as that energy was concerned, because you needed every bit of it. Those are some big picture thoughts on what that season will mean for Texas Tech, year one under Joey McGuire, and some bigger thoughts about the state of the program as well. But we will get to some specifics between the lines coming up dead ahead as to how exactly it happened. Texas Tech caps off their regular season with an OT win over the Sooners. We're getting to that coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by Upside. Cash back in your pocket right now. Is that something you might be interested in? If so, get with our friends at Upside immediately. It's an incredible app for anyone who's buying gas, groceries, dining out, things like that. And with every purchase, you're earning cash back thanks to Upside. Maybe thinking it's too good to be true, but it's not. So get started today by downloading the free Upside app and use our promo code LOCKED. That's LOCKED, LOCKED, and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you're earning 3 times more cash back with Upside. So download the free Upside app today and use the promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back right now on your first purchase. The promo code LOCKED with Upside. Get cash back now, right now with Upside. And also today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. As you assemble your team for 2023, you want just the right candidates to talk to. Don't want to waste your time with someone that doesn't fit the profile of what you're looking for in an employee. And that's where LinkedIn comes in to play a vital role for every business owner, as they're getting you to the candidates you want to talk to faster. You can create a free job post in only minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. That's why small businesses are rating LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs will help you find those candidates, cut through the fat that you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers are visiting LinkedIn? So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Swinging it back around this week to the round ball as Mark Adams and company are back in action from United Supermarkets Arena. But we are thinking Red Raiders and Sooners to kick off the week. 51-48 overtime win for the good guys. A lot of things to consider, Chris, when we discuss how it went down, but given the conversation around the quarterback position this season, it's hard not to start right there with another incredible effort from number 12 and just a little spice of number 7 in a couple of different ways that I know thrilled the home crowd, man. It was a lot of fun to see all the way around for Tyler Shough and then Donovan Smith to have some big impact in the regular season finale as well.
Yeah, I thought Tyler just continues to gut it out. He's impressive. He throws for over 400. He's rushes for about 50 yards on I think 5 yards a carry, and just does and he makes the one interception. But Jerron Bradley he trips, kind of crossing over in that route, takes a misstep, and that's enough in a situation like that. But to get it picked. But I just again he just. They moved the chains, and you bring up Donovan. I thought Zach did it. This was the best I'd seen that all year. One, they're without Mason Tharp in this one, and he's I think going to play in the bowl game. So you're really just down. And Henry Teeter was not really available. I think an emergency situation only. So you're really only down to Baylor Cupp as a tight end, and so you were going to use either one tight end in the game or none at times. Well, this was kind of okay. Let's hit him with this different personnel group. Let's insert Donovan Smith, and they used him as a decoy. They used him as a lead blocker. They threw it to him. They handed it to him. I mean, it was kind of the same look of a two-back set, and you've got Tyler, and then they shift out Tyler one time and snap the ball to Donovan, and then Donovan comes out of the backfield one time. They throw it to him, and the Sooners do not cover him at all. I thought Zach did a really good job of using Donovan in a variety of different ways, and it was needed because you maximized everything you had in that kind of package of plays out of that personnel group in the red zone, and I just it was a lot of fun to watch because I was intrigued as anybody. Okay, what's this one going to look like? What's next? How are they using him here? And you weren't sure. Lead blocker, decoy, receiver, or running back. It was all there.
Man, it was fun to watch Sir Roderick Thompson have a pretty impactful night as well.
Yes.
And, you mentioned the rushing game impact from Tyler Shough. It really seems like as we got into the later stages of this season, Chris, we saw the ground game approach for Zach Kittley in the offense. I don't know if it changed, but kind of evolved. And I'm wondering just at this point, was it just a matter of having Tyler Shough in the game? Because, some of the stuff we saw, not just the QB run stuff, which was, again, a part of what you did Saturday night like it has been in some previous weeks. But I'm trying to figure out, how often at the line of scrimmage, because you've alluded to it so many times, is Tyler Shough making some of these decisions, or is it like an evolved approach to the ground game? How do you see that aspect of it? Is Kitley changing or evolving anything with different personnel available to him? Is it that different personnel being Tyler Shough, making some different calls at the line of scrimmage? Or how did it break down? Because it was definitely more impactful as you finished up the regular season.
I think Monroe Mills being healthy is one aspect of it, because there was that gap in the middle of the season where you had some things shuffled around. I think this is your best version of your O-line this year. So that comes to it. Tyler also, he's extremely well studied and smart, and he's going to put you more often than not in the right play or take you out of the wrong one. And so I think that aspect can't be overstated. I don't begin to know what's going on, from snap to snap and how much he is checking in or checking out or whatever. I just know that there's a healthy respect for the way he commands things when he's in there, because he is so well studied on what the defense is trying to do. And I think it's, in the first half against Oklahoma is one of those defenses where it's kind of how we've heard Texas Tech's defense described. They show you every single front that there is, and like every look, and they just it's all over the board. So there's no rhyme or reason to really what they're doing. And once you kind of get through that, they kind of settle in. And I think Tyler did too. But so I think Shough is so good in that a lot of these for him aren't necessarily called runs. He's just so good at, okay, they're blitzing from there, and if that blitz, it comes past me, I'm going to either throw it right there or I'm going to run right there. Like he's got a good feel for when to tuck it and go when it's not necessarily called. And so I think there's just a combination of things, but it's just a sign of a team getting better, I think, as the season has gone along and maybe being healthier too. I think that had an aspect to it. Because, again, you finally had – what the Miles Price that we have known to appreciate and understand. Whereas when he got hurt and when he kind of came back, it just wasn't the same guy. But Tyler's the same way. And, Jerron Bradley was in there doing his thing. There was a brief bit in there in the middle of the season where he was dinged up. So, again, I'm long-winded there, but it's a combination of a lot of things. But it's like what was the guy from the A-Team? I just love it when a plan comes together. But, this is kind of, it's all, it's all kind of happened right there. And it ended up in a 3-game winning streak to end the season. And you certainly ran the ball when you needed to.
Man, I hope you can continue some of that into the bowl game, obviously. But I love seeing Bradley specifically finish up the regular season the way he did with that kind of game, because I think he needs to be your guy. And I don't know, recruiting pipeline, what's coming up beyond the horizon right now. But Bradley's got that physical trait set, that you don't really coach. And I'm hoping that maybe he'll have some better health luck and maybe can really blossom, because, man, we saw some big games out of him this year. It just wasn't consistent enough. But you think about some of those and the possibilities there. It would be great to envision more consistent big impact for him in years to come. Years to come, Chris, before we move along, just want to hit you off the cuff. Can you forecast years to come for Tyler Shough, maybe the immediate year coming up next? Because quarterback conversation is always so interesting with the transfer portal, and obviously you've got a really competitive quarterback room on campus. Where do you see him 2023?
Well, I don't think, he said some things after the game that kind of raised some eyebrows about it. I don't think it's near as spicy as some did. But
can you paraphrase what was said, or just give me the context there? Because I saw the quote, but I didn't know the framing of it.
I interviewed him on the field, and he kind of, I asked him something to the effect of, man, or do you find it funny, or do you think that people are still surprised when you're able to grind it out and run so much? Because I think so many people are still surprised and shocked by that, but this is just who he is. It's really who he was at Oregon. I mean, this is just kind of who he's been. We just have seen him get dinged up twice. And so you feel like, okay, this is not his game and all that. But no, this is at his core. This is who he is. And he was just like, there's going to be doubters, screw them kind of thing. That's what he said. Well, after the, in the post-game press conference, I think, he was asked something effective. Hey, you're 3-0 as a starter to end the season. And technically, I guess 4-0 on the season when you look at the whole, because he started the very first game of the season as well. And he kind of commented, there's people up and down the hallway that doubted him or didn't believe in him and all that. I think where he's coming from is that, one, I think he really wanted his job back whenever he was quote unquote cleared. Being cleared is much different than being ready to play or being ready to play at a high level. That's my take, but I don't know if he necessarily agreed with all that, but he's competitive. He sat around, he came here to play QB. He came here to be QB1. He sat around for 6 or 7 weeks, and I think he wanted the right to be able to compete, but it wasn't going to be given to him. And maybe there was some frustration there. So that's kind of where I think my opinion is where that stems from. As far as like what's next for him, I don't think he wants to transfer anywhere. I was
going to ask, is that even a dumb question for me to ask?
Not at all.
Assuming too much? I don't know.
No, not at all. Because he can if he wanted to. He absolutely could. I just don't think he wants to go through all of that. It's hard at that particular position more so than others. Right. You've got to go in, learn a whole new scheme. You've got to earn teammates' trust. You've got to, there's just a whole lot that comes with that. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go in and fit in a wide receiver or defensive tackle rotation at some team, and you're going to play with a bunch of guys. No, you got to come in and win everybody over, understand what everybody's trying to do, understand new terminology, and all the stuff that comes with learning a new offense and a coordinator and a head coach and all that stuff. I just don't think he wants to go through all that. The question really is going to become, for him is going to become, okay, is there enough? Have I done enough, to put myself in a position to get a good NFL grade or not, and then depending on what that is, does it make sense for me to go ahead and go, or to come back for one more year and try to prove that I can stay healthy, that I can play a whole season, I can be a good quarterback and show them all the different things. There's all kinds of dynamics there, but I think ultimately that's his decision. I can't prove that or say that that's a fact. That's my read on it based on my knowledge of everything. But I think you'd be crazy not to want him back, first of all. For sure. I think if there's any chance that he wants to come back, you say, kiddo, we would love to, because and ultimately at that position, I think as long as you get 2 of the 3 back, I think you can't ask for more than that. I think that, and I really don't think the one guy that I don't think you have any concern about losing is Baron Morton, and he's kind of the future. Right. But, in an ideal scenario, this is probably asking for way too much, but Tyler and Baron come back. That's your 1-2 punch. Jake Strong comes in as your freshman signee, and you've kind of got a nice little pecking order. And then Donovan Smith stays here in kind of a utility, maybe a position change type role, because he's such a good teammate. There's so many things he can do for you, as we saw versus the Sooners. And, we talked about some of that, but ultimately he may want to go play quarterback. His dad may prefer that. I don't know what their wants or desires are. So there's a lot to be figured out here in the coming weeks for sure. And it's all going to start happening fairly fast or soon after the bowl game. But we're in that sweet spot now where if you're going to the portal or if you're going to transfer, if you're going to declare, we start finding out about that stuff pretty quick.
Yeah, his performance down the stretch of this regular season, that being Shucks, did not make anything easier as far as sorting stuff out, because he was so successful and he looked so good. You obviously wondered what it might have looked like otherwise if he was healthy. I think when you find a guy that has some success and looks capable like Baron Morton so early on in his career, it's easy. And I know I was in this category to just kind of be like, all right, well, sayonara, everybody else. This is obviously the future. And while that still, I think, remains somewhat true, I completely agree. If Tyler Shough wants to be your quarterback again next year in Lubbock, I think you're happy to have that opportunity to have him as your quarterback once again. And visiting with him early in the season, I think it was actually before week 1, Chris, it just seemed like he had a real genuine appreciation for West Texas and what it's become for him. And he's a married guy. I know that he probably thinking a little bit differently as opposed to maybe a couple of years ago. So I don't know, man, what the future is going to hold, but it became very, very interesting given the success that he had to wrap up the regular season. So looking forward to some good options once again, and hopefully just have some better luck from a health standpoint with whoever's going to be in the mix to open up next year.
And that's the thing, Cowan, is like we beat this drum a lot, but you are naive, and we are all naive if we don't think you're going to need multiple quarterbacks every season going forward. I mean, look at the league last year and your own situation, but everybody else's, and then you look at the league again this year. This is how it goes. Everybody runs their quarterbacks. Everybody's quarterbacks have a hard time staying healthy, and maybe even they play, but maybe they're a bit dinged up and compromised or whatever. But bottom line is you're going to need more than one. And so if you lose two of the three and you only keep one of your current trio, you're going to have to go find an older guy out of the portal, period. That's just the way. You can't have true freshman Jake Strong being your backup. That's the reality of your situation on needing more than one guy. That's why I say if you can keep two of the three, it's about as much as you could possibly ask for realistically. And I think at that point you feel great about it. If you somehow keep all three, whatever that looks like, and everybody's cool with whatever their role is, I think that, yeah, you've struck gold a bit there.
Man, can't wait to find out, and can't wait to find out what it's going to look like in the bowl game. Got another one, obviously, before we close the book on this season, but it'll be a very interesting offseason once again whenever it comes to the QB room. We will get to some primary takeaways, some individual mentions as well before we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Texas Tech. Coming up dead ahead, but first, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Nissan, working with us to create a brand new segment across the Locked On College Network called Thrilling Moments. We're highlighting the most exciting plays from the Red Raiders over the weekend. And this week's thrilling moment from Joey McGuire and the good guys, well, it's a pair of them, Chris, brought to you courtesy of your friendly local funeral director, Reggie Pearson. We're going to the fourth quarter first, where he baptizes Eric Gray on the west side of that Oklahoma offensive line. I can't quite remember, but it seemed like there was a little hesitation, or maybe he's trying to bounce it around. Either way, he's damn near at a stop, it seems like, that being Gray. Reggie Pearson is not. He is coming down like the hammer of Zeus. Is that a correct reference? Maybe Thor's lightning bolt, one or the other. And Chris, I didn't even think they allowed tackles like that anymore in the game. But got the stadium amped up and set a tone, which he continued into overtime when you had what I thought was one of the strangest play calls for either team all day. Your banged up quarterback you throw a pass to in the flat. And again, the funeral director at your service as Pearson puts a licking on Dylan Gabriel. And I got to tell you, again, I'm just conditioned now as a football fan to be like, all right, where's the laundry? But no flags came. This time it was legal as Reggie Pearson, set a violent tone, Chris. Our team in red and black, they were the ones cracking heads more so last night. And, man, that's a good feeling to have.
Yeah, Reggie hasn't been perfect this season, but I think he chose the regular season finale to play some of his best football. Because he's been, in and out of the starting lineup a bit. Coach DeRuiter kind of frustrated with him on some coverages, and Tyler Owens is going to play some and whatever. But bottom line is, when this young man gets going downhill and he's got an angle on you, yeah, look out. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And it was kind of two perfect storm scenarios in those two plays that you mentioned. But like shot out of a cannon, man, and he has the right angle, and he does it clean. Not helmet to helmet. He kind of leads with his shoulder, and he just unloads on people. It's that quick twitch that when he gets there, it's just like it all just kind of blows up on whoever. And credit to Eric Gray for not coughing the ball up. Credit to Dylan Gabriel for not coughing the ball up, because I wouldn't have done. I would have been like, hey man, just take it. Don't hit me anymore. Right. But you're right. It did. It set a physical tone. And usually, okay, let's be honest. Usually, it's Oklahoma that hits people like that.
Yeah.
It's You're the little guy. You're the one that's getting picked on and kind of getting bullied or whatever. And it was fun to watch Reggie do his thing and because I think he actually gets to come back next year. I think he's going to make the decision to do that. So we'll see kind of what that looks like. And I think you'll be great if he and like Rabbit both. I think is what Coach McGuire has said in press conference scenarios. But yeah, Reggie was. That was fun, man. I mean, Oklahoma knows who Reggie Pearson is. I can promise you that.
Oh, no question about that. And, people nowadays act like, ooh, you celebrated that? You celebrate something like – yeah, pain is a part of the game. And once upon a time, it was the intention to legally within the game inflict pain on your opponent. And Pearson was doing it last night, man. Love to see that. Those thrills inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. So pursue what thrills you in the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at NissanUSA.com. And also today's episode brought to you by your Red Raider buddy, Armen Williams with Schooley Mitchell, North America's #1 cost reduction company. And we're talking everything under the sun, Chris, whenever it comes to the chance to save you money. He's your vendor watchdog. And it's just success story after success story. Have enjoyed hearing about some of the most recent savings that Armen has been able to find for businesses just like our Locked On Texas Tech listeners' businesses that are so vital to them and their families.
Yeah, I mean, one, Armen's a Red Raider. If you own a business out there of any kind, let him try to help you. If they can't find you savings, if he can't, you don't owe them anything. They will only share in whatever savings. And odds are he's going to find something he can help you out on. Like recently, they were able to find about 60% savings across 3 different categories for a different kind of business that involved telephone, waste, shipping services. It equaled about 10 grand of savings a year. So, those kinds of things. Just let Armen do it, man. And again, if he doesn't find anything, you don't owe anything. There's no upfront costs. Let him dig in. And everybody's trying to watch what they're doing with inflation and all those kinds of things. So just let him try to help you out. And we think a lot of him around here, man. He's good people. I know he enjoyed that win over Oklahoma as much as anybody.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let him off the leash to be your vendor watchdog because he's the guy that is in your pocket whenever it comes to sicking this one or sicking that one. Little negotiating, finding out whether or not you're paying market rate or beyond. Think about what some extra wiggle room could do for your business in 2023. And as Chris mentioned, basically no risk for you because there's no upfront cost. It just starts with a free analysis. But here's the deal. You likely are going to find some savings because on average, 28% is the number by which Armen Williams and Schooley Mitchell are reducing businesses' costs just like yours. So get in with them today. Get the ball rolling at savewitharmen.com. That's Save with Armen, ARMEN, savewitharmen.com to learn how Schooley Mitchell can reduce your costs with absolutely zero risk. With Armen Williams and Schooley Mitchell, your cost reduction expert at savewitharmen.com. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're making it happen. We appreciate you. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts if you have not so far, so you never miss an episode. Red Raiders wrap up their regular season 7-5, the mark, Chris, and get to some primary takeaways here to wrap up our show. And I just feel like one of those that stood out to me, when you're having to go back over a decade to say, hey, it's the first time you did this, it's the first time you've done that, you're doing something pretty good. Unfortunately, it also means the previous decade stunk mostly, but there are a lot of mentions of 2009 when you're talking about what you did in conference or talking about what you did on your home field. I've been harping on that all week long, so I feel like, all season long, so I feel like that's where I have to start this week. The fact that Joey McGuire did restore some edge to Jones Stadium. Used to be a really tough place to play. We're still working on cooking that environment back up to the degree that you would like it to be consistently, I know. But you can't argue with the results. You had, I think, the most wins of anyone in the Big 12 on your home field. Now, you had more games than normal in that regard, but about as good of a home run as you've had in a decade plus, right?
I mean, and like, think about it. If you had season tickets this season, they won 6 of 7, but you just think about the sheer entertainment value. I mean, 3 overtime wins, 3 storming the field scenarios, and 2 of those being Oklahoma and Texas, which this is the first time that's ever happened. I mean, so I'm thinking. It became the thing to do. It's becoming, fun again. And that's what this stuff is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be fun when you win. It's supposed to suck and be very frustrating when you lose. And I think that over the last decade-ish, it wasn't even to where it sucked when you lose. It was just kind of like, that's what we expected to happen kind of thing.
Right. Here we go again.
Like apathy maybe had crept in a bit, and it wasn't exciting. And I was real worried that, boy, it just seemed like it was at its peak for that Baylor game. And you have the whole place just filled up to capacity. You've got Pat Mahomes there. It's a big game. And I thought, and then they just play really poorly. Made the worst game that they played all year, and you turn it over a bunch. You just can't really stop Richard Reese and Blake Shapen and the Bears that night. And I thought, oh, man, I just hope that you haven't taken a step back from what you had built to that point. But then they come back and you beat Kansas and Oklahoma with a road one in between it, and you feel like you're just riding high into the offseason. And everybody's so excited about the expansion on the South End that will begin this week as we talk. And, but yeah, I mean, it's becoming a tough place to play again. And I think that's the one that was maybe first on the list for Joey McGuire. And like, what do we need to do? Because he saw what it did for basketball last season. He lived through that whole thing. He was here. Mm-hmm. He was pretty much here through the entire basketball season. He'd already gotten the job, and he saw what an 18-0 home record can do for a program and a season and a resume and all these different things. And I guarantee you win 6 home games going forward every year, you're going to like the results of your season in total more often than not. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I thought you had a great environment from those in the stands. You got a student issue if you're playing on this weekend. We all know that. But it reminded me a lot of that Baylor game in 2008, which people always throw off the cuff as no one being there, which is incorrect. You had about 56,000 people there. Not 56, sorry, that's a new number. You had about 50,000 people there, but the student section was sparse once again. So I don't know what you can do to attack that in years to come. But I think where there's a will, there's a way. I don't think you have to be afraid of this game on your schedule. You've just got to find a way as an athletics department to address what will be an impacted student section. I mean, clearly it was. But, Chris, I don't know about you, but I think the guys on the field had to be spurred on by some of the energy there provided on a very cold night at Jones Stadium, because I was pleasantly surprised, I think, especially as you got down the stretch in the second half, that it did kind of feel like you were helping your team out a little bit with that energy. What did it feel like actually on the field?
I was really, when you're on RedRaidersports.com or you see social media and you kind of see, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, you see people, hey man, I got tickets if anybody wants to use them, or hey man, I got tickets that I need to get them in the hands of somebody that'll use them. And you just see a lot of this. You're like, this may not be good. Where's the old crowd? I was very, it wasn't full by any means, and the students section was very empty. Yeah. The rest of it, though, I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised in a positive way, because it was for the most part full in the primary areas, and they were loud. They were into it, and that goes even though. I'm still saying that, even though you were down early, they didn't leave. Yep. They didn't, and they had chances to go, you know what, I'm not going to sit out here in this cold and watch this. And maybe it was that 3-minute stretch right before the half that okay, like this was 24-6 and now it's 24-23. I'm coming back after halftime. I'm not leaving. And again, you don't know how many more times that program is going to be in your building. And that may have been the last one, all honesty. We don't know. I don't believe they're going to be on your schedule at all next year. You're not real sure if Oklahoma will be back here ever. That could have been the last time. But, yeah, tip of the cap to the crowd and their energy, and you gave them plenty to cheer for. If you're just there as an uninterested observer and you don't really care who wins or loses, that had to be an awesome game to attend or watch on TV.
Yeah.
High entertainment level.
No doubt. And shout out to the dipstick working for the man at the student section entrance. This is like late fourth quarter, Chris. I decided with my buddy, let's get down here a little closer. We're walking up to the entrance. Homeboy in the yellow shirt is telling me, I said, brother, it's empty. Look behind you. And I told him, you're fighting for the man, my guy, and that's the wrong side to take. So what did we have to do? Walk down one aisle way, go into the student section, and walk on the other side of him. I mean, good grief. Come on, guy. Think for yourself one time in your life. But, man, was a lot of fun with the right result. Of course, at the end of the day, a highly, highly entertaining football game. Individual takeaway for me, Chris, I got to mention him again because I am in awe at his ascension as this season has gone along, and he was your leading tackler on Saturday night. Kosai Eldridge, 14 on the night, 11 solos. He's in the backfield, has a quarterback sack as well. I did not anticipate him becoming the guy that he has been for Tech's defense, Chris. I really just kind of hope that he could continue to get minutes, be like an impactful part of the linebacking core. But he's one of your short list team leaders, I think, up to wrap up the regular season.
I will tell you that I believe that's Coach Bookbinder's group, and I will tell you that when you graduate, Rico Jeffers and Colin Schooler is kind of your 1-2 punch. And we all talked about what a concern was on the defense. Like, you felt good about the front, depth-wise, experience-wise. You felt good about the back end. Linebacker was somewhat of a question mark. I don't know. It wasn't as big of a question mark as maybe the O-line coming into the year, but it was just because of the guys that you had lost. And Krishan Merriweather and Kosai Eldridge, available, durable, make plays, smart. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Kosai maybe plays his best game against Oklahoma. I'm not real sure. He did tackle Dylan Gabriel like 28 yards off the field on the one play, which I was right over there next to it. He gets on top, he kind of trips, and then they were just going so fast that it like almost ended up at the wall of the stadium. But like, if you look at Kosai's game minus that play, and then you look at the other game and went over Texas, and you think back to Krishan Merriweather's play on Bijan Robinson to force the fumble in overtime, mind you, kind of just sums up how good and important that group has been for you in two of your biggest wins of the season. But they didn't take a step back at all, and in fact, maybe were a bit better than last year's duo, and that shocks me to even suggest it. But that may be the reality of what we saw from those two. And I'm going to sit there all offseason. I'm going to be like worried about trying to replace that duo because I'm like, Jacob Rodriguez, Tyreek Matthews, whoever else, wants to take a shot at it. There's no way you can be better than Krishan and Kosai. But yeah, I think a great job mentioning Kosai. Very, very smart football player. No
doubt, man. Just love to watch it. And shout out to Krishan Merriweather as well, who I think turned in his best season as a Red Raider, Chris. I'd love to mention also the receiving core because this is what you'd love for it to look like more often than not. Not only do you have the big day from Jerron Bradley, who we mentioned earlier in the program, you also mentioned Miles Price, but I loved seeing, again, Nehemiah Martinez. I'm excited about this guy's future, big picture-wise. And how many times did we hear Fungi called on the loudspeaker? Because it seems like he's got like a vanishing act he'll pull out of the bag every once in a while. But over and over is Fungi. Only 4 catches, but 61 yards on those 4 grabs. It looked like you had a group with a little depth in the regular season finale. I don't know how many times it'll show up, but man, it was nice to watch those pass catchers.
Yeah, it seemed like Loick's catches were really loud and important at the time, and like J.J. Sparkman, Trey Cleveland didn't do a whole lot. But I thought Jerron Bradley, and this is the Miles Price that we were used to seeing, or we hoped we would see all year, like making plays after the catch, the yards after the catch and the quick twitch and all those things. But and I think Jerron Bradley, man, he's got it. He's still so young. I mean, this kid's it's all in front of him. He's got 3 years still to play. He's just kind of figuring it out and learning how to play with leverage and use his body and kind of bully ball and then get open in the middle of the field and all those things. But yeah, hopefully he can build on this, because it was last year at this time during that bowl game that he kind of started to scratch the surface. I mean, it was West Virginia a year ago, and then he had those big plays in the bowl game to where everybody was like, okay, this has got a chance. And we didn't see as much of it this year as we wanted to. Boy, he saved his best for last. And now it's just a matter of him kind of continuing to progress and take the next step, because he looks like you want. He's not going to run away from many people. That's not his game. But being physical and running routes the right way and, playing the leverage and all those different things, I mean, he's got a chance to be a stud around here for a long time.
Last thing in my bucket, man, is the specialists, McNamara, Trey Wolff. I thought McNamara had a good night also. Trey Wolff was 3 for 3 on field goals. We mentioned the extra point biff, but whatever. He nailed it when you needed it the most. I thought your special teams guys really gave you a good effort.
Yeah, and this was a night where there wasn't a lot of fourth down opportunities based on the distance or where you were on the field or the time left, whatever. And so Austin McNamara got plenty of opportunities to flip the field, and he did that most of the time. And you forget how good he is, and then you see, like he hit some bombs against the Sooners, man. I mean, we're talking, I'm kicking it at the 15, he's fair catching it at the other 20. That is the very definition of flipping the field. And then I'll always have a soft spot for Trey. We've talked about that so much of this season, and that he's a guy that so many cases like this, he wouldn't have still been here. I mean, it is a stud 2 years ago. He's one of the best kickers in the country. I think 20 of 22 Lou Groza Award Watch finalist, and then loses his job, kind of loses it, dealt with a sports psychologist a lot and tried to get over some of the mental part of it. And he's just come out as a better version of what he was. And anyway, it just like you take him out of the equation and you have a bad kicking situation this year, your record's not 7-5 and you're not winning all these one-score games, you're not winning these home games. I mean, because he had to kick the game tying field goal last night and then the game winner against Texas. He kicks the game, the game tying one, I think, at the end, and or he thinks it's going to win it, and then Texas ends up kicking one to take the lead again, and he's over there going like, well, damn, there's my moment was just taken from me. But anyway, so right. I think to your point, I think, you don't want to take those guys for granted, man, because total team effort, man. And your kicker and punter were certainly heard from on that night, and in a good way.
Well, we talked about Wolff. I remember prior to the season, or whoever the kicker was going to be, that Texas Tech was going to need them at some point, or him at some point, because you expected defensively to be good enough, at least I did, to be in some games in the third and fourth quarter, to be in some tight spots, and three could sail your ship or sink your ship. And it certainly came to fruition, and Trey Wolff was sailing a lot more often than not. Did we empty the bucket? Did we cover it all, Chris?
I think so. And we've got the rest of the week to pick up any loose ends that we didn't touch on. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's leftover season.
That's right, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, well, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast so you don't miss any episodes this week. As I mentioned earlier, we do have Red Raider Hoops coming up, Big 12 Big East collision from United Supermarkets Arena, so we'll get you set for that ball game a little bit later on in the week. Chris, enjoyed it as always, man. This discussing wins is really fun, and Joey McGuire has given us a few to discuss to wrap up the regular season, right?
Yeah, he has, and I think it's really fun to think about a meaningful game to finish this season up with, in a fun destination higher on the bowl pecking order against a potentially ranked opponent from a Power 5 conference. I mean, that's a lot of fun off into the horizon there, but we've got plenty of time to break that down, and we don't even know who and where and all that stuff yet. We'll kind of speculate as the week goes along. But, man, it's good times right now. Boy, it certainly looks bright off into the distance from a future of this football program.
Yeah, I want to get into some bowl projection conversations coming up with you this week. And also at some point, maybe Chris can just break out the whiteboard and say, this guy's eligible next year. This guy's not eligible next year. This guy's eligible next year. Yeah. And we'll run through some of the choices that so many have to make this offseason. So stick with us here this week. Another new episode coming up 7 a.m. tomorrow on YouTube or again, anywhere you get podcasts on Locked On Texas Tech. We'll see you on the other side, Chris.
Sounds good, man. Keep hope alive, Cowan. Glad to be back.
You got it, man. And be right back here coming up tomorrow for another edition of Locked On Texas Tech. And after Locked On Texas Tech, we hope you're making Locked On Sports Today your next listen. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the Dizzy. That's Locked On Sports Today on the Locked On Sports Network. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you next time around on Locked On Texas Tech.